All right. First off, welcome to this webinar on the Ivy Plus college admissions trends. I'm going to talk about different strategies and kind of big picture. We're going to look at really specific data on admission rates and then talk about overall kind of methods that you could apply for your students or potentially if there are students on here that you can undertake yourself. Um, so, uh, in that way, my name is Michael Wagner. I run the company Wagner Prep. It's a tutoring and test prep and college admissions planning company based out of New York City. I was a teacher, so I technically I still am because I work with a lot of students still to this day. But I started teaching at 21. I love working with teenagers, and I've continued doing it for now almost 20 years. Megan is our relationships manager, so she does a lot of the onboarding, talking with parents to know their needs and what we could help with. And she's also going to be managing the chat today. So as I go through, I'm sure there's going to be questions. A lot of the times, I'm going to say it depends because there's all this nuance because these are individual universities that we're going to be kind of grouping together. But feel free to throw questions up in the chat and I will address them at certain moments in the presentation. Additionally, and so we're going to kick this off, I'm going to share my screen. Um, I have, or one of my advisors who's really great with extracurricular development and building that part of student portfolios. She was supposed to be here with me tonight. However, her younger sister, who she's helping with this process, actually won an award for the High School Fed Challenge, and it's a black tie event tonight. So it just so happened that the dates overlapped and we didn't catch it in time. But she's on our staff, and if you have a student that wants to work with a Harvard grad on the whole application, we have that and that experience. But keep that in mind because we will talk about it when it comes to Ivy plus college admission strategy and competitions, things of that nature. So, without any other prelude, let's get started. So, what I'm going to do is talk about the basics. What are the Ivy schools? What are the Ivy Plus? What does that even mean? So, Ivy Plus is the more modern term to talk about the top schools in the U.S. It's not a neatly defined term like the traditional Ivy League. So that's a conference. It's like an NCAA conference in the U.S. and it's eight schools. It's always been these eight schools. Seven of these eight schools were founded before the country was even a country. They're part of what's known as the colonial colleges. Cornell's the youngest member, but still hundreds of years old. And so this forms the Ivy League school. These also happen to be the top schools in the U.S. for varying programs. However, it's a bigger pool now. It's not just the Ivy. So to capture that, they've created this term Ivy Plus, and even this, it's not really agreed upon who exactly is the plus in the Ivy Plus, but you generally it's some collection of these schools. Stanford, MIT, and New University of Chicago are always grouped into this, and then a mixture of the other ones or all of them as well. So I made a really wide kind of definition of this so that we could talk about all of these elite institutions to capture in the Ivy plus terminology. So one of the first things that people wonder is like, okay, so they're elite institutions. Like, what does that actually look like? And you can look at admission rates for levels of selectivity and competitiveness. In general, they're about 5% for the Ivy Plus. There's plus or minus 2%. It depends a lot of these places where it's like which program you're going for, what your background is. At Caltech, for example, at tech schools, generally it's more male dominated. So females have a higher acceptance rate than males because less females apply. So there are, nuance within the schools. And then also, we'll talk about later, within the universities themselves, there's smaller colleges and some are more more easy to or easier to get into than others. Um, and also, the size of the admission class is very different. So you have schools like Dartmouth in the Ivy League that are only receive about 30,000 only 30,000 applications. And then you have a larger Ivy League school like Cornell, which gets around 70,000, which also can fluctuate the admission rate a little bit. But in general, in your head, think 5% is the admission rate. So, what do you need to get in there? So, looking at some like testing metrics, because that is also a common question. Out of the Ivy League schools here, you can see, in general, you're looking at a 1480 or higher, to get into the middle 50% for the testing requirement, or a 32 generally, or higher. There's some, again, nuance in these numbers, but if you're thinking about path to Ivy League for testing, the numbers are going to be 1500 or 33 or higher. Like those are the numbers that you kind of want to hit in general. Uh, Also, if you take a look under the policy for the testing policy, this did not look the same, a year or 2 years ago. So a lot of the elite institutions are going back towards testing required. So that's something to take into consideration. If you're going for this, most of the Ivy League are going test required. And that's true for a lot of the Ivy Plus, although not all of them. So it's a little bit different here. Um, One thing to really draw highlight to just talk about recent trends, because that's something else I wanted to discuss on our webinar today. If you take a look at Georgetown, it seems like the outlier here at 1400 to 1540. But in reality, Georgetown has more like honest statistics than a lot of these other schools. One of the reasons is that schools have been test optional since COVID. And so for the last 4 or 5 years, students have only been submitting scores if they're hitting into this middle 50% range. And so that has steadily pushed these scores up to really untenable scores, untenable heights. Because if you're scoring a 1500 or higher, you're in the 99th percentile. You're already so high. It's almost makes it really difficult to score in that area. So then students aren't sending them. But now, as things are getting to become more test required, you're gonna see it as the data kind of, it's going to have a curve down now as we move forward into this more test required world. So why am I pointing out Georgetown? Well, they went test required as soon as possible. So they only had 1 year of test optional, or 1.5 years of test optional. And then they were really pushing tests right from the beginning. So they didn't suffer from that inflation like a lot of these other schools have. They want the other schools benefited from it because it could push them up in the rankings, but now it'll all kind of sort itself back out. As an example here as well, underneath it, Johns Hopkins University. This 1530 to 1570 sounds ridiculous. In 2019, it was 1460 to 1560. So again, sliding down almost 80 points. And that matters because that 80 points is tens of thousands of students who take this test, in that realm. So as you're applying to test required schools, strategizing about that, you don't want to be stuck with these middle 50% and that's it, because you want to think if it's now required, that's going to regress a little bit. So that's one aspect of this.
Who is
All right. So moving on. One of the things with elite institutions that is becoming more and more important is starting earlier, or at least if you know early that you're going for an Ivy Plus school, trying to get out in front of this as much as possible. In freshman and sophomore year, you really want to use that time to explore, and then kind of hopefully by the end of sophomore year, kind of latch on to that thing that's going to make you stand out. If you're hearing common college admissions advice now, it talks about being spiky. The old trend was to be a well-rounded student, be in the Model UN, then also student council, then also play a sport, then also do volunteer work. That has gone way out of fashion, and they want students who have a very singular focus on a certain passion and that has built up over the 4 years of high school, and they have things to show for it, more so than just being in 30 different clubs and volunteering, sprinkling in a lot of different places. So junior year is that critical year. If you're thinking about Ivy Plus, you want to be thinking about the hardest classes possible that you can take. We'll talk more about academic rigor later on. And so if you don't have a rising junior yet, or a rising senior rather yet, the kind of earlier steps, really focusing on that GPA, exploring the different extracurriculars, and then sophomore year, continuing to try to take those hard classes, excel in them, and then finding ways to kind of like tunnel in on those different activities. So I would imagine that most of our guests here, and we can find out in the chat if it's not the case, but are here with rising seniors. So it means your students are finishing junior year. And so these are the six main levers that you have left to pull in the college admissions like playbook here. And it's not too late. It's not like if you didn't start in ninth grade, it's over. But these are the things that this presentation is going to focus on, and kind of give you that overview, to maximize the impact of today. So I was just talking about being spiky. This is really the biggest thing that you still have time. If you can find that narrative in your students' kind of portfolio, and find something with leadership, impact, focus, or like time spent, some combination of all four of those. So as like the lift model for extracurriculars, uh, really the first two are the most important, is like leadership opportunities and impact. But if you do something with that, it's going to show focus and time. So that's how that all works out. You could think of this in four kind of increasingly impressive tiers. And for Ivy Plus admissions, you have to think about impressing the person who's going to read it. This is something that can be rather distasteful for students, where you have to kind of break out of this notion of like humility and like I'm just going to do my work in my lane. We need to get that recognition from the outside world to validate that student doing that hard work in their lane. And so that's why it's important to work, get internships, get awards, get involved in competitions, get involved in the world outside of just your schoolwork, classroom, to get that outside external validation, because that's how schools can actually like see what's impressive and what isn't. So this is what most students are doing, where they're involved in some kind of club, community work. Maybe they're on a team. They do some summer camp. They're in some kind of combination of this, and it's great. But again, we're talking about Ivy Plus and 5% admission rates, so we need to kick it up a little bit beyond just the standard. And so here, this is where a lot of parents kind of cap out in this way, where they think this is like the highest level of involvement, and there's so much more further we can go, but it's still kind of baseline here, where you're not that you have to do all of this. We want spiky, so like do getting involved as not just in the National Honor Society, but maybe you could be a president in some kind of capacity in your school, that would show leadership. Volunteering for 500 hours, that shows the commitment over time in that lift model. A club president, again, is going to show leadership. We would want to connect that with impact on the next tier. Summer programs at elite universities, these are good, but you have to be careful with those. A quick note on those summer courses that a lot of parents sign their kids up for. One, they are helpful, especially if students are dorming on campus, to get a feel for the campus environment, the vibe, things you want to see on the to like maximize value is if the class is taught by a tenure track professor or if it's like farmed out by a third party. That can make a big difference. And if the for maximum impact, you want the course to be taught for credit if that's possible. I know there's a lot of 1 week or 2 week programs, but the harder it is to get to the other end of it, the more impressive it is. So the course should be taught with the same rigor and expectations that they would have in a normal college class. Otherwise, it's not as impressive. It still could be useful for the student to get a sense of what the college is like, to meet other students in the same field, to further an interest. But in terms of application building, like a 1 week, pre college business course at Columbia isn't as impactful as taking a business course over the summer at Columbia. All right. So the next level of this spiky would be leadership with impact, essentially, is what you're kind of looking at to find a strong differentiator here. So it's not just that you're the captain of your tennis team and there's 4 kids on it, right? It's that you're the captain of your tennis team and you went to the state championships, and so there's a lot more responsibility that comes with it. The leadership is not like just a checkbox. It's you need to show that with impact, with the time spent, and that's where it makes you spiky in that way.
Hey,
Um,
Mike, can you also add in just a bit about elite athletes and how that fits in? I feel like it
yeah,
does
so
it with these, yeah.
the Ivy League really likes athletes, and in general, we're going to look at some numbers that they're expecting you to play a sport more often than not. Like they like that in the profile. As an example, Harvard has four categories that they score on, and one of them is athletics, and you have like a 1 through 6 on that. So uh, if you're being like recruited and you have connections with the coach, that's a different experience. Depending on how good you are, like that let's just say in the Ivy League, like your athletics can be you're a 6 out of 6 and in this scoring, but then your other characteristics may not be as strong because that's your spike is that athletics. What I would try to do if that was like a student of mine, let's just say, like in the past, we worked with a student that got recruited for lacrosse at Yale. And you still need to meet certain metrics. So it's not like you can have a 20 on the ACT, but you don't need a 36 on the ACT. If you're being recruited and you're 6 out of 6 athletics and you're a 4 out of 6 academics, and then you have like a 5 out of 6 personality, that's one of the categories here, where your letters of recommendation are coming in, your coach is speaking highly of you, all these other aspects of like your leadership, then that creates the full picture for admission. So, and this is why that little acronym LIFT is really the thing you want to kind of the view any kind of extracurricular in that light. Now, if you're earlier in the process, if you have a freshman or sophomore, uh, use that to say like, should the student even be doing this? Is this worth the time, the effort? If they are enjoying it, that's fine. Kids can go do things they enjoy. But if they hate it and you're just making them still play the piano and they have no interest in it and fight you at every turn, just so you can have 1 hour of piano lessons, through the next 3 years, they might have a better use of that time. And so that's where, talking with an advisor, seeing like the whole portfolio, how it all fits together, coming up with a plan would make sense. All right. So I've stayed on this one for too long. I'm going to move on to the top one, which is going to sound a little crazy. The first part, starting a nonprofit organization, that was like a phase that started or a trend that started like 10 or so years ago, maybe a dozen years ago. Um, it can still work, but if parents are setting up the nonprofit and it's clear that this was not something that's in that spike or in that like wheelhouse of that student, it's going to get more eye rolls than like wow and congratulations. However, if you have a student that discovered a problem or had some type of problem that's near and dear to them and then showed consistent approaches to trying to solve this problem, where then they finally, as a junior in the summer, took it on themselves and created this network and a nonprofit organization that has real impact, then that works. But you can't like just shortcut that and be like, oh, I'm starting a nonprofit on cancer research, and you're not a STEM kid. You've done no science research on that. It's out of the blue. You've never worked with anyone in any hospitals. It just comes out of nowhere. That's going to get not going to be as impressive to the admissions office. But all this stuff at the tier one, it seems really, really hard and hard to achieve and hard to do. But if you're starting early, you're allowed to be spiky and not ignore the other things, but you don't need to be in every single club and every single play of sport all 4 seasons. You're able to really push one focused initiative, one focused competition. The maybe start a business that's something interesting in sophomore year that can grow over time. Um, Also, you don't need to start a nonprofit. You could also work with other charities to bring chapters to your school, to your location. We worked with a student last year or no, 2 years ago, that worked with an organization called Cast, like fishing, like casting a rod. And there was no New York City chapter. And the student reached out because he loved fishing. That was his thing. He wrote his college essay all about like fishing, and it works. It pairs students with special needs with students who can teach them how to fish and spend a day fishing. They were able to get. He was able to rally his friends as the instructors in this, and they were able to get the permits in Central Park to do this in New York City. And he founded the New York City chapter for this organization, Cast. Now, that's not something that is impossible to do, but it takes focus, it takes time, it takes leadership, right? And it's not fabricated. It's something that the student clearly has an interest in. He wrote his college essay on fishing himself, and not even including the cast part. And so the story is there, and it's organic and authentic, and that's what admissions offices are looking for. Um, Megan, what am I missing? Anything else? Okay, because that was
Nope.
the chunky part.
Yeah, doing great.
So, keeping in mind, right, the lift model and like leadership opportunities are important. Ivy League, Ivy Plus institutions are looking for change makers, right? That's like their mission statement. They want people who are going to go and help others to be better, and then also create amazing things for the world. So keep that in mind. Um, Spiky means depth over breadth. You don't need the well-rounded. And 2 to 3 major commitments and showing progression in those is more impactful than overspreading your time. So I think we kind of talked about this, but in general, you want to like kind of be leveling up in that progression, just like in a career, right? If you're a freshman member of this club, ideally by senior year, if you're focused and spending a lot of time in that club, you're going to have some type of leadership role. Um, Impact is also really important. So, talk about dollars raised if it is impressive, but that is a good metric, or people reached, or if there's some type of legislation or policy changed. Media coverage is always a possibility. I tell high school students all the time they have way more power than they realize because people want to help teenagers. People want to help interested students. And so reaching out and actually reaching out to local congressmen and representatives, reaching out to local business owners that were in a field that you might be interested in. There's just so much potential there that's untapped. And then also, media outlets are looking for feel good stories as well. So if you have something of note, then that's a match made in heaven. And then that last part, regional and national awards. Uh, after or tomorrow morning, and in the email, we'll send a link to like 40 different competitions, nationally recognized competitions that are hard. There's science Olympiads, math Olympiads, there's business competitions, there's like the Fed chair challenge that it doesn't. It's not only math and science. It's about journalism, poetry. There's a lot of national competitions that students can get involved in, and then grow throughout high school that can be really useful in building a spiky admissions portfolio. All right, so we talked about that a lot. So moving on to all right. So looking at other statistics to try to get a sense of like what school Ivy Plus schools are looking for, and just understanding what you're up against. These are general numbers, but uh, over the course of Ivy Plus, you're expected to have really good grades, right? That's a par for the course. So a 3.9 to a 4.0 unweighted GPA. You might have heard weighted and unweighted just to confirm. So unweighted means you don't get any extra bonus points for taking really hard classes. It's like your grade in the class is what it is. Some schools weight GPA to take this into consideration so that you might get 2 or 4 extra points if you're taking an AP class so that it levels out your GPA. Even if you have a weighted or unweighted GPA, every admissions office has their own formula. Some schools prioritize the core 4 subjects. Some have different ways of including academic rigor and your scores in these. So really, you're just trying to focus on getting the best grades you possibly can. Now, 3.9 to 4.0 unweighted is close to perfect. But you also want to focus on like staying spiky, right? So if it is science, make sure those grades are the strongest. Get your letters of recommendation from science teachers, things of that nature. About 85% of admits are in the top 10% of their class. And in general, you're looking at 8 or so AP classes over the course of your 4 years. Now, they also know how many AP courses are offered to students at these schools. So that's a part of the portfolio when students submit. Like schools have a readout of, X school offers, 10 APs. If your school only offers 4 APs, you're not penalized for not taking more. But you may want to be able to try to show that you can take like a higher level courses in other ways with dual enrollment or by doing some other kind of rigorous research project. Some other things to keep in mind. At their peak, Harvard's reading 60 applications, or each rep is reading 60 applications per day. So even if you're doing that at a 10-hour day, you're not getting you're getting 10 minutes for your whole portfolio. Harvard has a different system where it's also kind of rotates, and they have like a group of people that come in and vote. But in general, at the Ivy Plus, it's somewhere between 4 and 12 minutes for the whole portfolio, and that's another reason to be spiky. To be, oh, it's this kid who does this thing, really well, because that's going to stand out. Specifics stand out more than generality, and whether it's in writing essays or for the application process. Um, Keeping in mind also, a lot of these schools like have because you're reading 60 applications a day, the readers know what they're looking for and what they're not. And so like being that specific is the key to moving on to the next round in the admissions. I put this up on here just as to remind me to kind of give a few words about this. So in general, at the Ivy Plus institutions, they're trying to fill their class with 15 to 20% of first generation college students, fill it with international students, although now we don't know what's going to happen. And so that's something that is going to kind of play out in the courts with international students at Harvard, and we'll see the trickle down effects of if people are going to internationally are going to want to apply here. It could be a small boost for domestic applications, or they could just not fill those seats. I'm not sure what they're going to do, and I don't think they know either. Um, these schools are need blind. We'll talk about financial aid in a moment, and then the other part, geographic distribution. So they tend to want to pull from all 50 states. Our base is in New York City. I would imagine most of our parents on this webinar are from New York City. And New York City, once again, is at a disadvantage in the college admissions process because we have 8.5 million people who live here. So that means that it's not unique to apply to a top school from New York City. We also have a lot of top feeder schools in New York City, like Trinity and Stuyvesant and Bronx Science. And so there's already a lot of top students concentrated in New York City because it's a competitive environment to begin with. So it's harder to stand out from New York City. I heard stories. I didn't have any clients doing this, but during COVID, some families relocated to Wyoming or Montana, and then like changed over to live there permanently for the college admissions process because there's not as many students that from Montana and Wyoming who are applying to Harvard and Yale and Columbia and Stanford. And so it is actually easier to get in from like a numbers game, but obviously we're not all moving to Wyoming. That's not what I'm suggesting. Um, so another reason why the Ivy Plus institutions have very small admit rates is that people don't turn them down. So I always tell this or use this analogy when I'm talking with parents about the whole college process. In the beginning, let's say your son is applying to college. He's on the Bachelorette hoping for a rose to advance to the next round. He's applying to 10, 15 schools. But in the spring, it's his turn. He's the bachelor, and he gets to give the rose to that school. But the Ivy Plus are the ones who usually get those roses. So their yield, the amount of students who say yes to their offer, is very high. So it's in the 80% for Harvard and Stanford. In general, it's in the 60 to 70% for the other Ivy Plus schools. That's exceptionally high, and that's what then keeps down their admittance because they can't overextend, or they could, but they're choosing not to because it's a luxury good. And so even a top tier school like USC in Southern California, their yield is only 45%. University of Michigan, flagship public university in the U.S., is 47%. Boston University's yield, another top 50 university, only yields at 36%. So if you've ever heard stories of weird situations where a student will get into like every Ivy League school and then not get into like maybe SUNY Binghamton, it's because Binghamton's not even wasting the time admitting that student because they know they're going to accept one of the offers at an Ivy Plus school. All right, moving on from those numbers, unless Megan, I have questions there. Okay. So another big lever that you still have time if you're a rising senior that you can kind of can pull here is college essays. So without getting too deep into the weeds, and I could do, I mean, I've done a whole week-long courses on this. You with the essay, I always tell students and parents alike, it's not the topic that needs to be amazing. It's the story and it's like the growth that you're showing, the student is showing. So sometimes students feel inadequate to get started because they didn't set up a nonprofit to to rescue Ukrainian refugees. That is, you don't need that. I've had students go to excellent schools who wrote about how they eat their corn on the cob, about how they hate snow days because it meant shoveling, and um, what else? Just like, really a lot of really mundane things. One of walks with their younger sister. It doesn't have to be this, amazing, gripping, like thriller movie. It's about reflecting on, where you were and then, where you are now. At Wagner Prep, we always prioritize authenticity instead of just trying to be boastful. As we talked about with like spikiness, specificity sells. So students, we're constantly saying like, get more specific, write with the five senses in mind. Um, One of the ways to kind of brainstorm and generate ideas is looking for those moments of tension in students' life. We always say this to echo their English teachers: show, don't tell. We want to create like vivid imagery in the reader's mind. And then it's good if it aligns with your application. So we're working with one student now that's very big into machine learning and AI, computer science, and one of the like home projects that he didn't do for any kind of grade or anything like that was create using AI and also an inflatable dummy and also a speaker to create dog sounds that are barking to get geese off the lawn. He put together this computer that can capture when a goose lands on the lawn, run it against a data set to confirm that it's an actual goose, then inflate the dummy, and then also play the sounds. He calls it the Goose Buster. It's amazing. That's a great story, but it shows learning in action. It aligns with his application, and it's going to show, not just tell. How we find those stories is just conversations, right? So um, you don't go in saying, "I know I'm going to write about this." It's just talking about things that interest students, and then finding, it's like almost like panning for gold to uncover that topic. Things you don't want to write about for the college essay. Um, Mental health in general, you want to kind of stay away from. But hardship is fine, but you need to put it in context and reflect on it. You want to show growth from something that you dealt with that is hard. Other things that I want to just one thing that I would focus on is staying away from obviously cliches, but also like mission trips. I went away to Mexico to build houses, and I came back realizing we're all one, and like let's all hold hands. That could be, and they're very meaningful trips, and getting students to help other people is a great thing. But we want to push that. So if I was working with a student that had that idea, wanted to write about that, I would push to find where's the story underneath that. Did you connect with one person in particular, and then also look for that lift, right? Is there impact beyond? Did you do something post like that trip that you stayed in touch? Did you run a fundraiser after the fact, or maybe it's about not about the trip itself, and it's about the bond that you made with your friends on that trip or with a teacher. It could be something spiritual if it was a religious school. Anyway, that's the idea of the essay. This is the time to write it. Students should be writing their essays in June and July in general, if they have that open time. All right. Financial aid. So this is also another important part of the Ivy piece here. So in general, Ivy League schools, Ivy Plus schools cost around 80 to $95,000 a year. Um, so that's the sticker price. It's like walking around in a car dealership, and they put the big black and white sign that tells you the MSRP. A lot of the Ivy Plus schools have really large endowments, so they offer a lot of financial aid. Um, as you can see on the financial aid policies in general, if you make under 100 or 150,000, even in some cases, you may not pay at all to go to one of these schools. Again, in New York, we're at a bit of a disadvantage because the cost of living is higher. So, even if you make 200,000, you're like, "Oh, I can't afford 85,000 on that." So, even at 200,000, you're still going to get some grants from the institutions themselves. Even up to, I would even say like at 250, you're still likely to get grants as a family. And then another big variable is if you already have a student in that college or in college in general, that can also be a factor into the awards that are given to you from these institutions, but don't expect merit aid. It's not a scholarship. And if you're a family that makes, 500, $600,000 a year, you're not going to qualify for any kind of merit scholarships or need-based aid in these top institutions because they don't need to award merit aid to attract students. They're the top universities in the country. So if you are thinking about applying or want to receive aid from these institutions as you apply, there's two things. One, the FAFSA form, even though you're not going to get federal money if you make 60 even $65,000 a year, you're likely not going to get federal money. But colleges use that form to inform them about need-based aid. And then there's an additional form called the CSS profile. It's from the College Board who run the AP tests and the SAT. It's an additional form that goes even further back and asks for more financial data. But the Ivy Plus in general requires that because they want to give out need-based aid to as many of the students that they deem eligible. Okay. Other levers that you could still pull if you have a rising senior. Academic rigor, if your school hasn't kind of shut things down and you can't change your course selection, but in general, if you call the school, even over the summer, you can, and demonstrated interest. So, more APs in general is better because that shows more academic rigor, but all APs are not created equal. The hardest APs in STEM are generally AP Calculus BC and AP Physics C. So if you're a STEM student and you have access to one of these classes and you want to apply to the engineering school of one of these Ivy Plus institutions, you should take that class. Even if you're not going to excel at it, they want to see students who are unafraid of that challenge. There are 39 AP courses in all, but no, not, I shouldn't say no school. It's really rare that you have, 39 courses. It's typical that you might have, 10, 15. If it's a really large school, you might have 20 AP courses. So it's not expected you're taking AP courses every single step of the way. And keep in mind, spiky is important. Taking the hard courses in the areas that you excel, that you really enjoy, is more important. If you are into journalism and writing and poetry, I wouldn't prioritize AP Calc BC, right? But I would prioritize AP English Lit, which is deemed as one of the harder APs in the humanities. If your school offers it, AP Latin, just because it's really hard, it's kind of one of these things like AP Calc. It's hard for being like for hard's sake. So if you can hang in that class, that's a good one. But also AP History is a push, AP Lang. I would prioritize those and excelling in those, creating good relationships with those teachers for letters of recommendation over just throwing on AP Bio because it looks good and you have no interest in it, and that's not what your like narrative application is going to be. Other schools, so depending on what your school's like, you might have an IB program. Obviously, in that case, you want to do like the high level in the areas that you're specializing in and excel in that. If your school doesn't offer APs or you're not on the IB track, or sometimes the schools instead offer dual enrollment. courses. Those work as well, and they can be just as rigorous as an AP class. You want to get that university credit if you're taking a university level class. If you've maxed out, some students have maxed out and want to continue taking high level classes. That's where in your field, taking a college level class over the summer or concurrently, if you're in a New York City public school, you can look into something called College Now, and that can give you access to college level classes as a high school student in a New York City public high school. So there's a lot of ways to continue to challenge yourself, but as you can imagine, that those are the things that are impressive if to admissions offices. They also want to be liked. So not every school does this, but we know some of the Ivy Plus prefer demonstrated interest. So what that term means is that the student is showing that they actually are interested in the school. We talked about yield rates. You want to get the universities want to get the rose from that student. You're more likely to get it if the student's opening up the emails that you're sending them, is going on campus and touring the campus in person or attending virtual webinars, is very specific in the supplemental why us essays, especially if you can pull from your experience on the tour, is talking to the regional rep when they visit their school. These are the kind of things that can really make a difference in the admissions process. When you have a student that is like a 50-50, you have a good relationship with that regional rep, you've toured the school, they know you love it, and it's your first choice, and it's very clear. Some schools really prioritize that. So these are the Ivy Plus out of the list in the beginning that I threw to you that do consider demonstrated interest, or at least publicly state that they do. Northwestern is a big one that really uh, is upfront about it. They want students who want to be there, and so that is an important part of the admissions process. So I'm calling these strategic admissions routes. Maybe you don't have perfect scores, or you're a little bit later in the game. You kind of want to get in. What are some other ways to increase your odds? The most obvious way is early decision. So early decision is a tool you could use as an applicant to apply to an Ivy Plus school, and it gives you better odds at acceptance. Now, it gets a little more complicated because some of the Ivies use what they call restricted early action. So I'm grouping early decision in with this other nuanced thing, but just applying early and sometimes in a binding way can really increase your odds. But in general, you only get one school to apply early to. So, as an example, applying early to Penn or Dartmouth could triple your odds of getting in when you look at the data of who gets in and where. Side note for not Ivy Plus, there's some schools that are really big into early decision that are still like top 50, top 100 schools where this really comes into play, where they'll take 50%, maybe even two-thirds of their class before the even regular decision deadline rolls around. So, but even at this, Ivy Plus level, in general, it's you're 2 to 3 times the admit rate for ED or restrictive early action. Um, Another kind of lesser known strategy would be applying to less competitive schools within these universities. So Cornell in Ithaca here, it has a weird relationship with New York, where there's actually like a public university within Cornell, and um, so as if you are a New York resident, you would get preference in two different of the schools in Cornell. Agriculture and Life Sciences is its own college within the Cornell University, and they also have something known as Human Ecology, which is again is its own like program within the greater Cornell University, and then also School of Industrial and Labor Relations. So all of these have higher acceptance rates than Cornell's general acceptance rate, but it would need to fit the narrative, right? So you would want to have some interest in agricultural and life sciences if you're applying for this, and they're vetting for that. And it's not like it's, you know, a 50% acceptance rate. Um, Same thing with Penn's nursing school. You know, Penn is if you wanted to try to backdoor into Penn, going into their nursing school, there's no rules against, you know, trying to transfer. It's just that it's not guaranteed. So you could play this game. It's a little bit dicey because again, it's not guaranteed that you can transfer out. But if you are interested in, you know, some, you know, maybe doing pre-med bio, you could try to get into Penn's nursing school, take all your typical prereqs, and then try to transfer over your sophomore year. Um, Again, it's not guaranteed, but it is a strategy that you could employ. We talked about the underrepresented stuff during COVID, and that's all that we've kind of mentioned already. I put this in here, not that it's going to necessarily help anyone on this webinar, but just to say that like this is still going on. So legacy admissions and different levels, they, you know, they do certain schools have preference for legacy admissions. Some are very upfront about it. Some try to kind of hide it in the details, but that this is still a thing that's going on. And then also, you know, if you're donating, you know, wings to buildings, there's those students still do get in at a higher rate than the typical student. And then we also talked about athletes. So about 20% of Ivy admits are recruited athletes. There is a well-worn path there. The Ivy League is a D3 institution, so it can't give a scholarship for athletics. However, having that relationship with the coach, who has a relationship with the admissions office, is going to be very beneficial. There is like, you know, the niche sports have less competition. The you know, it's the same thing with musical instruments. The instrument that gets the most scholarship money out of all the instruments is the oboe, because not a lot of people play the oboe. So obviously, you know, finding the niche sports where they need certain, you know, like or the talent is not as robust is easier, but you know, you have to be interested in this. So it's not really something that you can do, just get into it your junior year. Anyway, moving on. Another kind of backdoor strategy here would be transferring. So I have a student that was at Bates College this year and transferred, went through the whole transfer process. We worked with him on his essays and his college list, and he ended up getting into Vanderbilt, which is an Ivy Plus school. You know, they have a 5% acceptance rate during the year, and then as a sophomore now, he'll be able to get in where he didn't get in as a freshman. So that is another option if it's something that, you know, is important enough to kind of continue on and you want to transfer out. Of course, first year grades are really important. So, final thoughts. Um, in general, kind of keeping this in your mind, if you have a student or you are a student that wants to apply to an Ivy League or Ivy Plus school, you know, GPA is still a really important factor in this. About 80% have that 3.9 to 4.0 GPA. The 50% of admits to this is Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, and MIT have top-notch test scores, so 35 or higher or 1550 or higher. So, you know, do with that what you will. But we also talked about the 2 to 3 times higher for early action, early decision, demonstrated interest, which is something you can control, and then, you know, get spiky in that way. So when students are breaking this all down, or when I'm working with families, it is a numbers game. You want to try to apply to more than one Ivy League school, but you don't need to apply to or Ivy Plus. But trying to apply to all, you know, 15 or 18 that we talked about, it's going to become really hard to stay specific. Students do it, but we tend to not recommend it because they also all offer something very unique. So we want to really try to find fit, and that kind of carries into the next 2 points where it's like have realistic backup plans. You know, they're rejecting students with 1600s and 4.0s every single year. So you know 5% means that 95% are not getting in. And then it is important on fit. You know, we were on a call yesterday or 2 days, and a parent brought up this good line where it's like if you want you know if you're doing it just for the bumper sticker, then just buy the bumper sticker. It's a lot cheaper. So I like to you know think about that and really you want an environment where the student's going to thrive, and that's what's most important. So. These are the levers that you still have access to if you have that rising senior. We, as a service at Wagner Prep, we can help with those. And you know whether it's one part of it or all six. We do college admissions planning with students and go through the whole thing. We also do test prep. So if you are at that point in your journey, you know we can help with that, or even subject tutoring. If you're taking AP Calc BC, it can help to have an engineer who's one of our tutors walk you through that course and provide extra support. Our differentiator is that we really are committed to that like individualized attention. It's not one size fits all and hands off. You know, we're texting students constantly. You know, actually just today I got invited to a graduation party next week. So those are the kind of relationships we're building. It's not transactional. It's really about like just helping the students achieve their goals. We will send this out tomorrow morning as well. It's just some resources to help you plan. A couple books that are important or not important that could be helpful in your journey if you're interested. Both understanding the whole admissions process, the financial incentives, but then also those last two books to kind of take the pressure out of this as well a little bit. So that understanding that fit is the most important factor here. Um, and then, of course, if you're thinking about test prep, every month we host a proctored virtual SAT where you get like consultations based off of your student score. So you can sign up for that. We'll send that out as well. And it's time for questions. So 7:59. We have 1 minute of questions, but I will stay on and take as many as I can.
Oh, we really haven't had any questions. This
All
is a
right, that
quiet
means I
group
nailed it.
tonight. I know you're covering everything. Maybe we'll give them a minute or two to put some in, but I think just reiterating how specific everything is to the individual student is important. Is
Yeah,
someone
so
else who, yeah, talks to parents all the time. Everything's so dependent on your
and that's
specific case.
that's one of those things where we went back and forth of like, do we try to create these packages? And it's just every family needs something a little bit different, so that's what we try to provide. Um, you know, for the families on the call, if you have questions, you know, if you want to kind of like get a feel for this and your situation, what would that look like? You know, that we will email that out tomorrow. We can set up a call. Megan will talk to you and you know and advise how we could help through the process. I hope this was helpful. I was trying to give a broad overview of like modern stats on college admissions to the Ivy Plus schools. But if there's no questions, then we can wrap here. But feel free and
Yeah.
anything anyone wants to chime in. All right, then we'll end it there. So I hope to hear from people on this call as the week progresses. Don't hesitate to reach out and have a wonderful night.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.